ever that we're actually
I
going
know
to
you're
have
on
someone
social
on our
media a
show
lot.
that
You've got different
communicates with
projects
pets that
on the
have crossed
go.
over. And I find that kind of
Yeah, I
impressive.
mean,
And the reason I wanted to open the
a
show
job
tonight is
on the other
because
side of this
a
world
year and
as
a
well,
half
which
ago,
is
we had an
like the
unfortunate
most
event where we had to
appropriate
put our
side of
dog down. The dog
life.
was
But
on
it's
its way
been
out.
challenging,
And it was the most
with COVID,
heartbreaking
because
thing that
our
any
business
pet
is
owner has to watch.
hotel, pubs,
Oh
and
my
But
Yeah.
what did happen was this. And this is why I'm excited about tonight's show.
She disappeared.
They injected the
It's
dog and they
okay.
put the
I
dog
don't
down.
even know the whole
And
thing. Just
we were,
shut up.
we're very upset
It
and in
was going,
tears. And then
where's
we left.
Hamilton?
No,
And
no,
as we
Look,
leave
here.
the
Second.
building
yeah.
You might need
and
Oh
we're
my
driving
now.
a few blocks away,
Carl was
this
telling
is
us
what I
about
see.
his job on the other side of the world.
Okay.
While
Yeah.
you
About a
ghosted
mile
us.
up in the
But I'm just
sky
saying, it's like
to the
it's
left
been
of
tough,
me.
because
So it'll be about a mile
I
high and a mile
have
out in width.
commercial property and
I
shops, and
seen our
it's
dog
pubs, hotels,
running
and restaurants.
full
And
speed
they're
up
very
this, some
upset
kind of a
and
highway.
decimated with
Not a highway
all the
with cars,
restrictions. So
but some kind of a
I've been
highway. And the
impoverished
dog
the last year.
turned and looked at me as we're driving now. And this was all through the mind's eye really
Maybe
quick.
tell
And the
one of
dog
the
looked at me and looked really
deeper
good and happy.
worries that you've got going
And
there.
then he was
Well,
gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, the rent.
She.
I was going to say,
So,
people don't believe
you
that.
know,
He's doing all right.
that
He's not
that
starving.
struck
You're
a
going to have
chord with
everybody
me
all
because
worried
I
about
know
his
what I
way out.
see, not visually,
Those
but through the
started
mind's eye.
GoFundMe
So it's kind of like they
Carl.
make you see it through the
Go
mind,
find
and
me,
then you
Carl
think you're seeing it
starving.
through the eye's perception. And that validated to me,
or something,
without me even knowing and questioning, the dog made it to a better place after suffering so long in the physical world.
We're coming out of it now.
So,
it looks like it's
Tonight's guest, Julie,
it's
what are
starting
we
to
talking
open
about?
up.
Okay, well, first I
And
want to
it's not
say
just-
welcome everybody
it's not
to
just the
Monday
business
night
side of
segment of the
things,
Horsefly Chronicles Radio with
everyone's
myself,
been
Julia
down with it,
Siracusa,
the
and
whole
Philip
thing's been
Siracusa. We're
a bit of a
broadcasting
very
live
dark
from the
cloud over
United
the place.
Paranormal Radio
So
Network
it's
on 107.7 FM
people, I think
and
people have learned
105.3
to cook
FM
again
from New
because
Orleans.
of this.
This
Because all
evening's
the
show is
restaurants are
sponsored
closed.
by
People have
Carnation, so
either
we
threw
want
the
to thank
dinners
them
out
for
the
their
window. There's
sponsorship.
probably been a lot of
You will have to do a
divorces
few
and
things in order to participate,
relationships.
so over to the YouTube channel,
And,
UFO Paranormal
and there's
Radio.
been a lot of
Get into
It's
chat,
the worst.
subscribe if you
Pubs are
haven't.
closed.
You can go into
My host,
all the
everybody's
United Public
gaining weight
Radio
because I do
Facebook
cook.
stations, Twitch, SoundCloud, and
I
Podbean.
cook all the
I
time,
can only
so it
respond
hasn't
to your
affected me. But
comments
people are
on the
still
YouTube
taking
channel
out
on UFO
food
Paranormal
here.
Radio.
I'm sure you
And if
still
you
have
have any
takeaway
questions
going
for
well
our
there and
guests,
strong.
please ask.
Well,
You can also
I
go
think
over to
people now,
UFO
like just
Undercover
looking on
with Joe Montalzo on
YouTube,
Facebook
you
as
can
well.
create any
So
recipe as
tonight,
good as
I
anywhere.
want
There's
to
that much
welcome
information
Mr.
out
Rob
there that you can
Gutro to
find
the show. Rob is an
fantastic
author,
things, and
paranormal
it kind of
investigator, and
it
a
breaks the
medium.
mystique of the
He can
takeaway,
receive
doesn't it?
messages from ghosts
I
or
don't know.
spirits
I
who have
really
crossed
miss
over.
dining
As a
out. I miss
scientist,
it
he
because I
provides
cook every day.
scientific
Oh, it's
explanations
a
on
nice
how energy
experience going
is the
out.
foundation
I'm
of
always,
the
I'm always
paranormal.
eating out,
He
so
has
this
become
has been
known
just
as a
ridiculous
pet
for
medium,
me.
Not
but
me.
works with
I'm the
human
one that
ghosts
makes
and
everything from
spirits too.
scratch,
pub.
including
His
ice
books
cream.
teach
So
No,
teach
yeah,
you
no,
how
it's just
to recognize signs
I
from
miss the
spirits.
experience.
Tonight
But
we're
I
going
like
to talk
really,
about
really nice
his
restaurants.
third volume in a
I love
series
pub
of books,
food. I
Pets
think
in
we're
the
I
actually
Afterlife
like pub food
3.
too. Yes,
You
we
can
are.
find
we
all
are.
of his
We're on
amazing books
video.
on
Okay,
Amazon.com. So
finally.
let's welcome Robin to the
Jesus.
show.
Welcome.
If it's
Yay.
of any interest
Hi,
to
thanks,
anybody,
Julie and Philip. Good to be here.
my kitchen
Yeah,
is
Thank
this
you.
is first time for us
between the
having
hall
someone
and
like
going out of
yourself
the back
on.
gar-
So,
back
you know, we always like
What
to ask
happens
our
in the
guests,
kitchen is completely alien to me.
how did you get started?
Not a
Like,
clue.
take us back a little bit in
Me
time
too.
into being what you are
Yours
today,
so
able to
pathetic.
communicate with
When you can
pets.
open a bag of something,
Okay,
eat it, and
I'll give you the real
throw
short
the
story,
bag
and
away
that
without
is
creating
at
washing up or
13 years
mess,
old, my
inconvenience.
grandfather appeared to
Okay,
me
I'm not that bad. I have
visibly
No.
6 or 7 months after he died.
But
Scared the daylights out of
not
me
really
as a
domesticated
kid.
at all.
I found out my mom had the
We're
ability, my
polar
grandfather had the
opposites that
ability.
way.
It runs in my
We're
family.
opposite. Yeah.
I'm
Um,
cooking like
in
Yeah.
2005, my puppy
Yeah. I
Buzz,
cook
a
for
Weimaraner,
Michelle.
who you can see pictured behind me here on the
I
cover of
wanna
Pets in
do
the
that.
Afterlife 1,
This is
Okay.
like
he was
when I
tragically
could
killed
go
by
to
a car
restaurant. So
when I was
okay,
walking
so
him.
before we get all
And
the listeners just
he
going
became
mad.
the world's
So
best canine
What is
communicator.
going on?
So
Now,
Hamilton, what have you been up to?
I have always kept a diary, so when he started communicating with me, I wrote everything in my diary. And he influenced me to write my my first book, so that I could let people know how their pets communicate with them from the other side, and they're still very much around.
Looking at whether
just like your dog.
Thing to get
Yes.
involved with.
Isn't that interesting? What I said, I watched the dog get put down. The dog knew what was going on.
Yeah.
He knew that was it, and they couldn't find where to inject him. They were having a problem with that. But it struck that chord of,
that's pretty good, really.
Wow. I mean, the dog looked great. And that's how I described it. So what I'm describing is this highway, and he's running up, and he's up in the sky, where he's still visible but looking good. To yourself, what does that mean?
It takes over your whole life. It really does.
That's a very blunt sign that he wanted to let you know he is fine on the other side, and appreciative, because he is now free of his physical pain and his physical burdens, and he's headed to cross over.
And
that's why I believe in the work that you do, because I couldn't explain that to myself, and I'm saying to my wife, and we're all depressed. I'm like, but I just seen him.
Mm-hmm.
Her.
We're so used to seeing him with our dog now.
And it was so as if I'm seeing anybody through the eyes, but it was through the mind's eye. So, one of the questions that we have for you is,
hopefully they are. I mean,
how do you communicate
very, very interesting
through
project altogether?
Telepathy?
Mm-hmm. So this will come in.
Yeah, so there's a number of ways that I communicate
season 2, or are you just going to
ghosts and spirits? And telepathy is certainly one of the main ways.
Project also.
When it comes to pets, they actually, everything's telepathic with pets on the other side, with pets and spirits. So they will show me things that they're familiar with. They will give me names. They'll give me dates or times. They'll tell me maybe their favorite toy or their favorite treat, or they'll tell me if another dog or cat lives with them. They'll tell me all kinds of things from the other side. And they also make me feel, they make me experience the same physical pains that they experienced before they passed, in order for me to prove to the pet parent that you are really, I'm really talking to your dog or cat. So I sit here at the computer and I can feel my back, what I call my back legs. They're actually my legs. I can feel my back legs go out, or I can feel kidney failure or heart problems. I can feel cancer. I can feel breathing problems, and I start to develop these symptoms while I'm sitting here, and I just type them out, and that's how I do readings. I do email readings.
Okay, so when the pet is communicating, do you have an audio through the mind, where the pet's communicating verbally through the mind?
It's been handled very well.
Yes, I do. And they can convey words too, because as you know, as pet parents, you know that your dog understands different words that you say. They also convey emotion. They can read emotion as spirit. They can read emotion. It can be gone about quite correctly. There's a lot of things that they can tell me, and it's really surprising.
Ideas from anybody else, which is exactly what you want.
And I get emails from people around the world.
So basically, you're dealing.
I just replied to a woman in the Philippines about her cat, and
so to speak,
she was astounded of all the things that her cat had told me. And it's not just one or two things. Sometimes it takes me a half an hour to tell all of these different signs that a pet can communicate from the outside.
And you find out a little
it's like writing a book.
Native American Indian legend
when they're talking
tradition. And,
so do you get flashcards in the mind, like when some people see those that have crossed over? It's like a flash of a memory of them being here in the physical world. Do the pets show you that as well? Like when you're with them,
a
time where you're playing with them.
Evidence that might just justify.
Yeah, they do. They do show me little snippets. They'll also show me and describe actually people on the other side. So in one particular case, well, in many cases they describe what people look like on the other side. But one of my favorite instances is when a dog came through to me and described the grandfather on the other, a grandfather on the other side, and showed me multiple images of the same man, and he wore a red checkered shirt, and all he wore in all these images were red checkered shirts. And I said, okay, this is kind of crazy. So I emailed the pet parent and I said, is your grandfather? I believe your grandfather is crossed, and your grandfather is there with your dog. But your dog is showing me that your grandfather only wears red checkered shirts. And she wrote me back and she said, "Oh my God, my grandfather had a closet full of red checkered shirts, and that's all he ever wore."
Then he's narrowing it down.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of
All right,
crazy.
so let's get a little technical now. Let's get a little technical. So they were saying that pets cross over, as we know, and
we don't know at the moment.
I believe in heaven. Some people believe there's a higher place, and however you want to name it. So we call it home.
Supposedly,
when we cross over. So the question is,
on the site that we
do the pets and people go to the same place when they cross over?
Get ourselves
Yeah, absolutely. We all go to the same place. So what I've come to find out as a medium is that when we die, when our physical body
that's
dies,
extraordinary. But I
the,
mean,
the energy
there's
within
so
us, the
much
blood pumping, if you think about
speculation
that, if you think about thoughts as little
North America
electrical
coming in from the East
impulses
Coast,
of
coming in
energy.
as far as the Hudson
Those
Bay
energies
even,
combine with our
downward,
memories, our personality, and our knowledge from this life.
Apparently.
And then, whether
so,
we're a pet or
I
animal
think they
or
made
a
their
person,
way
doesn't matter
here,
what we
I
are.
mean, you almost expect
Any living
that it would
thing.
have been a thing.
We make a conscious choice
they
to
were
either
all
stay
rounded up,
here on Earth at a fixed location of our choosing, and that's what I call a ghost.
Beforehand.
Or we cross over and join the energies of the
So the
cosmos
dates, I
or
think,
heaven
would
or
be
Valhalla,
really
whatever you want to call the other
interesting to
side.
And
I call it a spirit because there really is a distinction between an earthbound entity and one that's crossed over. Earthbound entities, ghosts, if you will, are only limited to communicate to people in that fixed location. They can't go outside of it. It's very rare that they can. They may attach themselves to somebody, but that's not very common. But a spirit can communicate anywhere, anytime, any place in the world. So there's a big difference between an earthbound ghost and a spirit that's crossed over, in my opinion. And both of them use energy in order to get strong enough to communicate. Because they're beings of energy, they need energy to communicate. So they need physical energies and emotional energies. So heat, light, water, and electricity are physical energies that both of those entities use to get strong enough. Emotional energies, ghosts use negative emotional energies like fear, anxiety, depression, and anger. Those strengthen a ghost, but love, faith, and hope strengthen a spirit.
A ship to the Americas or a boat, you're always only 200 miles from land. So it's not that
you believe in free will when it's your time, whether you die in an explosion or you die from natural causes. It's free will of the energy, the soul of us, whether we want to stay in the physical, and then, like you say, a ghost or cross. Am I getting that right?
Yes. So we make that choice based on our lives here. So pets, because pets don't hold grudges. Pets aren't. They don't really need anything for forgiveness. They don't have other things to do here. They don't want to stay behind because they want to see how they can manipulate their money that they left behind. Pets don't have that agenda that humans do. So 99% of pets cross over.
They were fantastic diplomats.
Humans, on the other hand,
really merchant traders, and they were very quickly realized
Okay.
But the best way
and
to
then
survive
is it your belief that once you cross over, you can come back and be at multiple places at one time? So, for example, your brother lives in Florida and your sister lives in California, and your niece lives in New York. Now, we've spoken to many people who believe that we're making it up, but the dimensions are seamless where the spirit energy could be multiple places at one time. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the fact,
and that's how people who just pass over can influence and suggest to their relatives anywhere in the world that they've just passed.
And cooperation with the tribes people. It's not going to be just a case of
what is devised
physics?
And we're going to set up.
I'm actually a meteorologist, so I try to explain everything with science. But that defies physics.
I mean, we do have
that's
here
good.
in Eastern Canada.
I like that.
Pretty much.
So what do they say to you? People that have crossed over and you're medium. What do they say? What's on the other side? How do they explain that to you?
Yeah. And we know they made it.
They really
so many
don't.
Different ways to get here, and once you
because
make it
it's something that we can't envision.
The St. Lawrence.
It's really all about energy.
Come right into the
so as a scientist,
very easily,
I know that there are many different energies that are flowing through the cosmos. Cosmic rays, gamma rays, X-rays, all kinds of things. And they really become part of that energy in the cosmos.
I guess the key is, how many times,
and that enables them to travel anywhere,
because
anytime.
There's so many different
even
things now,
way beyond the boundaries of Earth,
just
and
like
the solar
the alleged
system
lighthouse in Rhode Island. Which they thought was Viking.
We as humans
it was more
can't visualize that.
And there's
so
a lot of
when they come to mediums to try and help give comfort to their loved ones, what they do is they show mediums usually a scene, a comfortable scene that we associate on Earth with peace, like a garden or a valley or a grassy area.
Became French as we were.
That's just spirit trying to get us to understand that they are at peace and they're happy. But we can't conceive what it's like to be energy.
They had the navigational knowledge
conceive what it's like
of the places.
I study a lot of the near-death experiences from most
part of the world, and the nobility would
respectable people,
part of that, because they would have eventually become
people who didn't believe in the afterlife, and they've been clinically proven dead.
Sure.
And now, according to what some of them say, there's no choice of the free will. Some of them are saying that there's this tunnel, they get sucked in like a vacuum cleaner, and they get pulled. Without a choice, they're getting pulled to the other side.
Well, you've got other
now, is it your belief and understanding that maybe
the sort of the Norse people were heading
that's for some people, or does that
out west
the general rule, and then you can decide if you want to stay there?
But I mean, totally separately.
It's been my experience that
the
people do not cross over if they don't want to.
They were fishing the same cod banks at the same times as the Vikings.
They choose to stay.
Doing a little bit.
They turn away from the light,
as you say, going down.
They turn away from that tunnel.
River.
That's what having free will is.
Stories and mythology about the French and how Montreal was set
so,
up.
No, I don't believe that everybody gets drawn in. It's a conscious choice. And here's something interesting I've encountered as a paranormal investigator.
Very early part of the 12th
I found that people who
making voyages over to the west to a new world
are more tend to stay behind as Earthbound ghosts, because when we die, we get kind of a recollection of our life. What we did well, what we did not so well, who we loved and who we hurt. And the people that are tend to be more religious tend to put more emphasis on the bad stuff, and they fear crossing over. So they stay behind
by foot to end up in the middle of Wisconsin, So,
but the bottom line is that they have nothing to fear, because on the other side there's nothing but love and energy and peace and forgiveness. So
that's right. How did they do that?
They should not stay behind as Earthbound ghosts.
Did they? When you look at where the
what's interesting about this? Now, look, we're paranormal investigators ourselves, and
what you now say is
from a very haunted house. And I always question you're into science and you're a meteorologist, which I like, and I always try to debunk everything. It's fake. It's this. It's that. It really took a lot for me to believe in this stuff. It took a lot, and it didn't take someone's word or a piece of paranormal equipment. It took toys going off by themselves with no batteries in it. And say, well, it's impossible. So now there is communication here with something from beyond.
totally
and
uncharted
what we learned is it's intelligent, extremely intelligent.
West, and where was they going?
So the question is going to come out that
west, or I don't know.
when we talk about a haunting,
scratch the head and try and
possible,
there isn't an answer
in your belief and understanding that maybe, just maybe, there can be malevolent spirits that affect animals.
Apparently he could.
Or Metatron.
Sure. So that's why it's not really the best idea to take animals on paranormal investigations unless you have a good idea about what's going on there. I only took our dog, our Weimaraner, Dolly, on one paranormal investigation because we were actually investigating whether or not the spirit of a dog was actually visiting. And she actually confirmed that by
the only way you could carry something across when you think about it,
mimicking the exact path that the dog used to take when the dog was alive. And she went up to the same room when I let her go. She went up to the same bedroom and sat in that bedroom when I let her go.
Everywhere,
just like the owner's dog used to do.
Turn up
so we knew that she had found the dog. But yes, malevolent spirits can definitely affect animals, especially
basically
animals, because they're much more sensitive.
And it was fascinating to me.
That was always our question too when we were talking about our dog that passed. We were so confused.
Academia just looks at it and doesn't
could it have been our house?
Like I said,
we were told it was. We were told it wasn't.
I mean, the Vikings.
It's a hard thing to even think about. Like, did you? You're putting your kids and your animals, but like you said, animals
looking at everything. And anybody who actually does proper research,
a question of mine.
I think would have. I mean, now they're starting.
Yes.
To look
So,
at it a bit differently,
in my Pets in the Afterlife books, I also explain some of the science behind, first of all, how they can communicate, and secondly, about their emotions. So,
and the whole North American.
I cite Dr. Stanley Coren, who did extensive work with dogs. He focused on dogs instead of cats. But, he explained in his books how dogs think and the intelligence of dogs. But they learn on so many levels. There's instinctual learning. There's routine. There is emotional learning. There's socialization. There's all kinds of different levels that they learn. They learn language. They learn time.
No one's looking.
If you're ever late feeding your dog or cat, they kind of let you know it. They read emotions. They know when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're sick. They come and comfort you. When you're angry, they go in the other room. They know when you need to be alone. So they are super smart. And I think humans really undervalue that. One of the questions that I've always received whenever I do lectures about pets in the afterlife is, do animals have souls? And that question actually makes me really mad because it's kind of stupid, to be honest with you. A soul is memories, personality, and knowledge combined with energy. So every living thing has a soul. I always tell people that animals were here long before humans showed up. They figured out how to live and exist. They didn't need us when they were in the wild.
Well, the thing is also,
we came along and we domesticated these animals. Now, like dogs and cats and so forth. One of the other studies that I cite in my book is Dr. Gregory Burns from Emory University in Atlanta. He's a neuroscientist, and he was fed up with hearing that same thing because he's a dog dad. So he trained his dogs and dogs from his lab to stay still for an MRI. Have you had an MRI, either of you?
Yes, I have.
How is it carved? Is it chiseled?
So you have to stay quite still for like 25 to 30 minutes, right?
Yes. And it's not good if you're claustrophobic, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's claustrophobic, and there's a loud hum, and they have to put earplugs in your ears and all that stuff. But he trained these dogs to sit still for MRIs, so he could scan their brains and monitor the brain activity based on when their pet parent came to them versus complete strangers. And what he found is that the caudate area of their brain lit up, showing love exactly as a human's does when their pet parent approached them.
So basically, it's just a
he
matter
scientifically
of,
proved that
you know,
animals,
working with
dogs
different
have the
minds
same exact
of life,
emotions that people have.
shall we say, in different.
I would
their
definitely
own
agree with
top of
that.
their,
Yeah.
you know,
Now,
respective
you
fields,
said
and seeing
every
what they can bring to the table
has a soul.
to validate.
Yes.
You know,
So,
what you
and this may
guys
sound
need
stupid to you,
validated.
but I have to ask
Yeah, I
you,
mean,
did dinosaurs
it's
have
funny when you
souls?
think how we
Oh, absolutely.
think about this. Well, we didn't.
Then how come we don't get
We met
apparitions
Wayne
and pictures
in Scotland when
in the
we were
physical
filming.
world on these ghost hunts?
So it's for Sean, sorry. Pardon.
Well, because okay, so
Sorry, Sean.
there's a lot of
So it's all
factors
the
there.
food
Number
is
one,
starving.
it's millions and
Go
millions.
to the brain after lunch.
Number two, anything outside is facing the energy barrage of weather. That tends to tear things down. That tends to dissipate energy. And animals
we had to help
generally cross over.
They rent this castle out to
unless they have, you know, an agenda, or unless they're tied to somebody that they want to stay behind for.
House castle.
So I've only run into 2 or 3 ghost dogs and cats in my entire time doing my paranormal. It's very rare that an animal will stay behind.
Like a 12-hour film.
So you get home and and I also find too that whenever a ghost is haunting a place, they and the place gets torn down, they look for another place. They don't stay out in the open air.
Whiskey with him.
Often, even soldiers on battlefields. You always see whatever intelligent haunts of soldiers in Civil War battlefields. They all come out of the woods all the time,
and that's how this whole thing.
They're not out there in the open.
The Wisconsin thing, but it was a great environment.
So the reenactments of soldiers, like especially Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
We know there's another side. We know this side is love, light, peace, harmony, and I know that through investigations and communication with the other side, right? So
it wasn't like a
my question to you is then why are some of the pictures, especially in Gettysburg, of some of these people that died in the war?
It was just nice to sit by the fire
on that battlefield. Is it residual energy? Are we really not seeing
else, really?
Then are we seeing the replacement energy of them through the conscious mind?
I heard from a little bird that's why Carl has to put a gem into his new home.
Well, that would involve actually investigating all of them. I think that there are some intelligent haunts there and a lot of residual haunts.
I mean,
I look at residual haunts as really emotional thumbprints of energy generated by traumatic or happy experiences that only reappear whenever energy is introduced into the area. So our physical energies can help power them. Our emotional energies can help power them to reappear. Certainly at night, if you're driving to Gettysburg and you're nervous or anxious because you've heard that there were ghosts, that anxiousness, that nervousness is going to enable that, is going to power them, basically. It's going to give them emotional energy to power up, if you will, and show up.
There wasn't any bread, and the lady who
intelligent haunts are different.
It was like, I don't know, she made the bread herself, and it was
I would agree with you. It's the emotions that we feel that empower the other side. I've definitely learned that.
It wasn't in
the only thing different about that is, especially like in the atheist people, non-believers, that we did have at our own home, we didn't believe in this stuff. None of it. Yet, within an hour or two investigating,
he needs
shadow
no expiration date on it.
Now, not full body apparitions. I'm not going to go there and say that, but it's almost the outline in this misty dark form. And the communication through the paranormal equipment was so intelligent that some of them could be on the property and other people could be in the basement, and the TV just went on by itself.
Just give him Wonder Bread. He's easy to
and back off.
Okay.
Easy to please.
So I'm not even joking about that.
I didn't see that. Thank goodness.
Yeah. All right. So then someone's listening to us. So hi, how are you? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. So they're intelligent as if they're watching and listening, and they know what you're going to do before you do it.
Came together, And then we had a
that's what we've gathered.
Wayne.
Now, let's go back to the pets and what you do.
Guy. I mean, no pressure,
let's say you have two pets.
Or anything.
One is crossed over and one has run away.
How do you guys
Would the one that's crossed over help you find the one that's ran away?
And the other big thing was Wayne's.
Yeah, sometimes they do. They are able to do that.
30 years, I think.
They also, Pets in Spirit will also help lead the other pet back home.
You're not dealing with an idiot. You're dealing with someone who's very pragmatic and
there was one instance where someone had contacted me and they had a pet in spirit, and one of their other pets had passed.
Very nice,
and they asked me where the pet was. So I connected to the pet on the other side.
Just a delight to speak to. Like he's just,
I said,
giving away very little.
Your dog is a dog. I said, your dog is in a grassy field behind a big stack of what looks like hay. I said, so do me a favor and send me a satellite picture, and I'm gonna pinpoint where your dog in spirit is showing me your other dog is. I've never done that before. So she did, and I was able to mark it using Photoshop, and I mailed it back. And she wrote me back 2-3 days later, and she said she found her dog right there in that grassy field behind the hay, and the dog had fallen in kind of a creek and couldn't get up.
Almost quite cynically to start
with. I mean, that
back
blew my mind.
Their little bit of research with like, you know what,
it was a spirit helping.
Could be something.
And that's it's good what you do because you're helping people. Animals are the best friends of humans.
We can get Wayne
so, Rob,
to Europe and
here's another hard question for you.
Some of what
look, every day,
the easy ones.
Every day, there's missing children.
Methods and the carving
yes.
methods, and
it's very unfortunate and it's very, very sad.
Yeah.
So you just said that one pet has the ability to go through someone like yourself and find a pet. Not all the time. It's never a piece of the whole. Every single time. I'm sure there's long shots too, but
it just feels
would that be the same thing
you've
for missing children?
So,
it very well could be. I'm much more in tune with pets than I am with people.
Okay.
Well, it's not your first
so mediums who specialize with children
when you see it, right?
may be able to help with that.
We've been working with.
I have interacted with human ghosts and spirits, but
story.
My love and what seems to be my mission is to help people who lost pets.
Trying to put a schedule together of 10
so that's your specialty. That's your forte. We have spoken to people, different mediums who, I asked that. There's so many people like Natalie Holloway, people that have crossed over, they never found ever, and the parents want closure. And look, there's 100 different myths and opinions, but give me a fact, right? Give me some facts here. Where's this poor girl? Where was she? Now, one of the logical things that I do believe and understand from the mediums that the spirit says is that they don't want to be found because they're leaving behind, because what they're seeing on the other side is they're part of everything and every one of us.
Yeah, I mean,
that to them it doesn't really matter.
We've got a couple of
even though we make it matter in the physical world when they're crossed over.
And just put you
again,
across the river.
this could be very sentimental to a lot of people, but from what I'm gathering from these mediums and from investigations, they don't want to be found. They're saying, hey, we're okay, we love you, we see you, we hear you.
You could walk
we
across
found
the bridge here.
the other side, but we don't want you to go there and try to
taking no time at all to
find us, our bones, our remains. So,
she's not,
and I know that's not your specialty, but is your thoughts kind of the same?
I enjoy the falls every day.
Yeah, I do agree. I know that people always want to get some kind of physical closure, but sometimes it's kind of a be careful what you ask for.
It sounds
kind of
quite
deal.
simple, but what you actually
because
have to do behind the scenes to get
if you receive physical remains and they explain that
is an enormous amount of work.
Somebody may have been tortured before they died.
It is.
That's much worse than knowing that they have disappeared and they're likely dead.
And yes, But from
so yeah, I totally agree that
the concept, the idea,
be careful what you
coming to
ask
fruition
for.
with full funding and
what I would suggest for anybody who's lost a child or a human that's missing and has been missing for years,
monumental feat
contact the medium and see if you can get a
then
message that way to get your closure.
It's not just the
rather
network,
than
it's not just the producers itself that come
for their
together with
remains,
casting
because
and a network.
It may bring you much more
now
peace.
You have to make sure it can be syndicated
by communicating with them in spirit than trying to find
even the
physical
syndication
remains.
companies, like in your case,
I agree
Discovery
with
picked you up.
And I'm also a
then
big
they had to
believer, because I've had these
agree
experiences
for season
through
2.
the
It's
dreams.
like, yes, we'll
The
syndicate
dream
it.
state
So now
is
all
when
of
the
a sudden
body's most
it's a thing.
relaxed
It's just very convoluted.
we're able
everybody
to
has to agree.
sometimes
This is usually
communicate with
UK,
those that have crossed
United
over.
States, and Canada.
And that would be my
Those are your
suggestion
three
too.
main players.
Yeah.
You know, if people remember their dreams, some don't, but a lot of people do, that sometimes the spirit comes through because you're relaxed and
who could just
say, hey,
yes or
here
no
we are,
mission
we're
and
fine,
series,
we're
but I
okay.
think these days it goes
But you're
to
right, Rob. You're right what you're saying. I believe that the spirit sometimes, we want all the answers, right?
We do.
But then when I watch these near-death experiences, and they're saying, no, it's not about that. It's not about
not
what
anymore.
you want in the physical.
And
we're part of everything.
It's an adventure.
Like you said, we're all energy.
Just keep
So
researching
then is it your belief that
you get to just keep looking?
we never had a beginning and there's
doing
no
your
end
homework.
because we're energy?
That's half the fun.
Definitely.
Well, I certainly believe in reincarnation, so I know we come back over and over and over again, and we're all connected.
I think we knew a little bit about, but certainly not as much as we do now. And just putting it together, looking at
if you take me back to the Big Bang, there was something there.
It's just a very interesting kind of intellectually stimulating thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, when we were filming...
But I want to get back to your note about dreams, because one of the things that I mentioned in my books is that dreams are the easiest way for spirits to communicate with people. And the reason for that is because during our waking hours, our logical mind always explains things away. We were, as we grow up and we learn to explain that paranormal isn't feasible, it's not real, so we try to figure out how something happens. But because of that, when we go to sleep, our logical minds are asleep, so spirits can come into our dreams. And I always tell people to ask the spirit that they're trying to communicate with before you go to bed. Ask them to come into your dreams, and usually within 2 weeks' time they will. Unless your grief is so strong that it blocks them. But spirits can also, and they have also gone to somebody else. They'll go into somebody else's dreams.
It's so simple, but it is,
I've spoken to a woman who said her neighbor dreamed of her dog that passed.
We've seen it.
The dog mom didn't dream of the dog, but the neighbor did. And the dog mom said, well, why did you dream of my dog? And the neighbor was smart enough to say, your dog is trying to let you know that he's okay in spirit, but he can't come through to you.
Photograph of just about everywhere we've been from every angle.
We have.
One of my favorite stories is a woman who contacted me, and she said she was so angry with her husband because her husband kept dreaming of their dog that passed, and she didn't. And every time her husband told her of a dream that he had of their dog, she would get mad and fight with him and say, why isn't the dog coming to me? And so the dog, I had to contact the dog, and the poor dog says, Mom is still really grieving. I have to go to Dad. So that's why. And I don't want Mom to fight with Dad over my dreams.
I never thought about it like that.
I fall in love with every place I visit.
In fact, I do that
throughout the
sometimes.
world.
I'll think
I really
about the
do.
person.
But I have to say, the south of France
going to
is
bed,
definitely,
and then maybe again, it's one of those long shots. But I've had
that one
3 or 4 occurrences where that person came through,
mind you,
and they look really good, and they're surrounded by this light, and they bring back memories, quick memories, but they bring it to the soul's part, not the physical, but the soul's part. You can feel the vibration,
going to them as well on
and
routes.
you feel like, okay, this is validation. You've made it. It's good. You're fine. We'll meet again.
there's actually a journey.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I like him too. I like this guy.
It's just the scenery that we saw.
Well, thank you. I like you too.
Spain,
I have a question. Were all these amazing gifts that you have, were they passed down to you from like family members?
When you're covering
I found out that my mother had the gift, but she was afraid of it. Because when her mom died, her mom came to her by calling her name. And my mother was so scared that the spirit would never come back. Or if you're scared when you first see them, the spirit usually doesn't come back. So my grandfather never came back to me because he scared the bejesus out of me when I was a kid.
It's all cultural.
Yeah, you go over
but my grandfather also had the ability. My mother told me. And one of my mother's cousins had the ability. Of course, I learned this like when I was 40, when I was writing my first book. Why did you keep this from me? I've had this since I was 13. And it's kind of funny too that my mom said she was afraid to talk to people who passed on. But she would call me. I would call her every week, and she would say, "So, what dead person did you talk to?" Well, why don't you talk to them?
Wow.
Hey, do pets and humans come back through the same soul groups to the physical world to go through this mission together?
I make good burgers.
Yeah, we do. We do all come back connected again. So your dog in this life will come back to you in another life connected as
Italian that
another
rarely
animal.
eats pasta. So
Wow.
yeah, I'm there with
That's my
you. I'm
experience.
not a pasta fan.
Huh.
So one thing is I got to say this. I did want to on these paranormal equipment, the spirit box and all this stuff. So here's the funny. It's funny, but yet it's interesting. I never heard ruff or meow on a spirit box. But I'm going to ask Rob, did you ever hear that, like a pet coming through?
The most basic equipment.
No, that's a good question. I have not heard that because what I've found is that many of the pets cross over. So spirit boxes we've used for ghosts. And there've been 3 different ghosts that I've encountered. So, but I will tell you that that a lot of pet parents I've spoken to have said that their dog or cat have either barked or meowed, and it always sounded like it came from another room. That's because it takes so much energy.
Easy on the budget.
It does.
Yeah, so there are so many ways that pets communicate, and that's the reason actually I wrote the Pets in the Afterlife books, is to teach people what ways they can look for. So that they don't need a medium. They don't need to pay a medium. All they need to do is educate themselves in what to look for.
Sometimes to film it from a different angle.
Whether it's feeling a slight pressure against your legs when you're sleeping. Cats like to do that.
Repetition.
Hearing a bark or meow, always from another room. Hearing their nails on the floor, hearing a collar jingle, seeing something move, leading you to another pet that may look like them. That's another way that our pets will let us know that they're around. So that's just the tip of the iceberg about all the things that I wrote about. But
throw the door.
There's many ways.
Let's get into these books.
Yeah, and you know what? Thank you for writing these books.
Oh, yeah.
When you have
exactly. You said you're trying to teach everybody, so they can learn all this on their own.
In fact, do you have any copies in front of you you can hold up to the camera so our viewers can see it?
I don't care if she looks.
Sure. Actually, you can you can see this is Pets in the Afterlife 1. That's my dog Buzz.
There you go.
And he had passed on. And over here is Pets in the Afterlife 2. It has a dog, a cat, a horse. 2 dogs. And I do have Pets in the Afterlife 3 just came out. As I was finishing Pets in the Afterlife 3 last year, at the end of last year, we lost 2 of our dogs.
Really?
Dolly and Franklin. They were both. One was just shy of 16. The other was 16. And this is them. I had them put on the cover on a rainbow bridge.
It really does look.
It was
like
very
a fantastic, massive budget.
It's still hurts.
And like Carl said, we got to some cracking locations.
So the pain is still,
because of the
the emptiness
thing,
is still
a lot
there.
of them. We were the only people there.
We never get over the emptiness, but knowing they're here in spirit is really a blessing. And both of them, actually, when they passed, one passed in May, the other one passed in October. The week that they passed, each one of them, they gave us so many signs that they were here, that they have their own chapters.
The only downside is we did
really.
Yeah,
we were doing a short and thinking, it's going great.
So one thing that's interesting, I will highlight, if I can for a minute, is when people feel cold spots, there is a scientific explanation that I can give you for why you experience a cold spot whenever you're in the presence of a ghost or a spirit. Have you both experienced cold spots?
Clean.
Okay, I figured you would because you're paranormal investigators. So what happens is, as I said, it's all about energy. So ghosts or spirits, in the case I'm talking about spirit of a dog, they needed that energy. So in order to manifest, what they do is they take the energy of motion of molecules of air. They take that motion and they absorb it. And what that does is it slows down the motion of the molecules. So by slowing down the motion of molecules, you're turning warm air into colder air. And that's why you have a cold spot whenever you're in the presence of a ghost or a spirit.
Because I mean, it was
wow, that's fascinating.
It's like you're trying to do.
That's what happens when you talk to a geek, a scientist, right?
Now, is that the same rule when my kids are around that I feel like there's a cold spot?
I knew you were going to do something like that.
We were late starting the filming for various.
And I want a warm spot, so I try to get rid of them.
We'd have had an extra couple of months. Like
we have a lot of children.
Yeah. No, that's funny, but actually, everything you say makes sense. So let's people listen. Get the books. And what can people learn and take away from the third book?
That's a lovely place.
So the third book is really all about dogs. So I've been doing readings now for a long time, and I actually just started charging like $10 a reading because I'm overwhelmed, and I can only do them on weekends on free time.
That's
it
really
was just so difficult. And then
thank you. Well, my books are only $10 too. And as a self-published author, I set that price because I want people to heal. I'm not out to become famous or make money. I just want to bring healing. That's what Buzz over here called me to do.
So, hotel and a brilliant bar.
So I'm sorry, what was your question, Philip?
So what can they take away from the book after reading it, the third book?
Absolutely.
Okay, so in the third book, there's also a chapter about how to deal with your grief. My friend, Dr. William Charmak, kindly wrote a short chapter. He's a clinical, a medical psychologist, and he deals with people who
there's a budget,
so there's a special chapter in here about how you can cope with grief. Plus, all the ways that you can recognize signs, whether they're cold spots or
like, okay, you have 1 hour here, then we're off.
Whether or not the spirit influences something in nature, like a bird or a butterfly, to behave oddly. When you're thinking of the pet that passed, that's another thing.
He was in Jerusalem.
There are
last series, and that is a
movement of things. When Buzz passed, he actually picked up a sneaker and moved it in my hallway, and my roommate came out screaming because he saw the sneaker move across the hallway. So they can learn all kinds of things. In another particular case, a dog was very fond of flowers, roses, red flowers. And
to explore.
Whenever the pet parent was thinking of them, they would see red flowers.
Just think of the Romans.
So you learn that there's no such thing as a coincidence either when it comes to spirit, because spirit really influences us to go places at a certain time, at a certain place, so that we know they're around.
Right.
And you get
well,
to
Rob,
places
thank
like
you so much. I mean, it's been a
Israel
pleasure. We learned a lot.
Yeah, I'm blown away by the amount of knowledge you
it's
have,
all
and
there in
tell
3D.
us, tell everybody out
But
there
we
that's
can't
listening,
just go where we want to go.
where people can find you, what you have going on, and where they can get these awesome
It was a
books.
brilliant place.
But it didn't seem like there were
thank
that
you,
many
Philip and
people
Julie. I
there when you
appreciate
were
that.
both.
They can find me on Amazon.com.
Jerusalem. I mean, you
they
guys
can
really
find
have a
me
lot of
at
space.
petspirits.com.
When
I
you were
created
up on
a
top
rerouting of a
Temple
website
Mount,
so
like,
that
there really wasn't that many
petspirits.com
people. I
will
was
take them to my
surprised.
page.
I agree with you.
All of my books are on Amazon.
That
As I said, they're all under $10. The
pretty
ebooks are under
COVID,
$4. So
pretty close.
I just want to bring peace and healing to everybody. And just know that your pets are very much around in spirit. And the love will continue forever. They'll be waiting for you on the other side.
Looking at your pictures, I'm like,
I definitely agree with
that.
that.
Lucked out with
I
that.
definitely agree with that,
Usually
Rob.
it's like
And it's interesting, right?
Yeah, like
it's definitely interesting.
Definitely.
And like I said, that one thing I had with the dog that crossed over.
We do have to end the show.
That's fascinating. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we'll definitely be in contact with you for a part 2. But to the listener out there, give me the titles one more time. All 3 titles of these books.
Pets in the Afterlife.
So
1, 2, and 3.
You wrote. You decided you
get those books. They'll help you if you feel lost, who doesn't have a pet. They'll help you. I believe everything he's saying through my own experience, and I can feel what the man is saying. Through validating just by being paranormal investigator, and it's true, it's real, and the dreams stay. But the books will help people open their mind. First, you have to open the mind, right? And then receive it, and then understand it, digest it, and feel it. And that's exactly what he's saying in a nutshell. And get those books, people. Hey, thank you so much for coming on Horsefly Chronicles Radio.
And we also want to thank Carnation for sponsoring the show. And join us again next Monday night at 7 Central and 8 EST.
Yeah, tell listeners out there, be safe, everyone. Get the books. I remember what Rob said, and it's my personal belief through the diligence of hard work that we do go on. The hardest and saddest thing is to lose a pet, a friend, a parent, anybody. But I can promise you, that we do go on, and there's that communication. And like Rob said, we will meet them again on the other side. So everyone, have a great, safe night, and we'll catch you next week. And there's another show coming up.
Lorelei.
So stay tuned. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Rob.